All right, welcome back, everybody. We finally got Lex and Travis back.
Hello. Yay.
We forced them up here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and tell everybody that I did not know that Heidi contacted you yesterday and said all that stuff and forced you up here.
I'm not forcing people up here.
I'm kidding.
No, we're glad to be here.
No, it's difficult for them to get up here. It's because they live like an hour and a half away, and the children, and it's so hard. So I'm saying that jokingly because it is.
Travis
it's
took
difficult.
The week off, so luckily we were able to come on a weekday.
We should have made you guys slumber party with us all week. Is what we should have done.
I think the kids would want that. Yeah.
Like you took a week off of work. Okay, cool. Slumber party at our house, and we'll just podcast every day.
We were just having a quick conversation on the tithing thing because a church member had said something about tithing, not knowing that you didn't. She came from a Pentecostal background thinking that you must tithe. Mm-hmm. I was laughing about it because, that was Travis did a short message it was Sunday night, right, that you did your message about the widow's mite?
Yes.
Is that when
it was a quick recording. It was a Sunday afternoon, and then I just released it after the
Okay, yeah, church. And then it was it was kind of a continue on to my 2 Corinthians teaching that I did earlier that day. Just, talking about giving and what Christian giving is and everything. And her mind was just blown because she's like, wait a minute, what? We don't have to
have never heard
And
this.
I did. I that night, Saturday night, I researched some like Clef Row Dollar, TD Jakes, Joel, like all
let's just
these.
listen to
I was
what
like,
they're
I just
teaching
have
and
got
putting
to
out
hear their version of this because as soon as I read this, I was like, oh man, you can see those spots in there where they can just abuse the crud out of it. And sure enough, I was not disappointed.
Which is so funny because it's the churches that typically are very abusive with how tithing works because that's their income, right? That's what they're told they're supposed to do in order to have the income to buy the jet and all that stuff. But those same churches are the ones that are very relaxed on pretty much every other sin. Or every sin. Not that tithing really has nothing to do with sin. But,
right.
But that's a good point. When it comes to sin, they're so...
Well, because if you're busy pointing out and correcting people to repent and come to truth, they're not going to be happy to just like, no, I want to live in my sin. And if just I can pay you off, I can continue to do that and have God's blessing.
Yeah.
The same member just said a second message just right now talking about that not only was it if you didn't have it monetary, you were forced through your time. Oh. So you had to give up to 10% of your time if you didn't give money. Yeah.
And how is that being a cheerful giver? Not under compulsion is exactly what
that's because you should be happy while you are under compulsion.
Right.
Continue to do so.
And that goes into anything we do for God. We do not obey the law under compulsion because we fear wrath. We obey the law out of a love and respect for God, understanding the amount, like the immense costs of the Son coming and bearing our sin and dying on our behalf. Like, therefore, then our love for Him should then spread into all areas of life and love for the brethren.
Yes.
Right? That's the idea. And but it should never be compulsive or from wrong motives. That's why Ananias and Sapphira, right?
Right.
They saw Barnabas sell one of his homes, give the proceeds, and they go, oh, look at how much accolades he just got.
Yeah, look at all the stuff that he got. Look
and
at
then
all
when
the
they start thinking
got.
about it, and it's like, oh yeah, we got this house, we can give it. And then what they do, they're like, oh, we did say we're going to give all of the funds, but we should probably hang on to half of this. Right?
Well, and then there are people who they're taught like, well, if you give, God will bless you financially.
Yep.
Right.
Which, I mean, He does a lot of the time.
Sure.
If you're being obedient in that area, or just obedient in general, like God makes sure that your financial needs are met.
You're met, right. That's
what you see as a need and what God sees as a need might
be
very, very different things. But yeah, I don't know. It just blows me away though that these churches they harp so much. One of the church Elevation. Yep. Every service we ever went to there, they showed a tithing video in the beginning.
Okay, the service we went to, the whole service
was on tithing.
Was how much money they received.
They had a praise box.
Right.
That anytime anybody, and people got up during the service.
No, that was an Elevation.
No. This is I thought you already established this is a different church.
No, I was saying when we went to Elevation, they literally the whole service was all the money they got in,
Yes.
like that was their sermon.
Yes. It was their it was a financial sermon of the church state. Like,
But
are
we
you
went to
kidding me?
another church that was like a wannabe mega church, and every time someone
were
would
big,
get up
though.
and put money in, but they were still at the school at that point. But they every time they would put money in the praise box, the whole congregation would shout hallelujah. And it didn't matter when. I swear,
It
like they
was-
staged people to do it periodically throughout the service. I mean, we went there for months, and it was like every single time somebody would get up and do it, everybody, the whole congregation would shout
That's
hallelujah.
manipulation.
Exactly.
Completely. I mean,
So
it
I'm going to
was-
manipulate you into giving me all of your money while telling you things that make you feel good enough about yourself that you're just walking straight into hell.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's crazy how programmed we are from that to, like, even our last, and that's why the widows, our last $20, you know, they're like, I have to give that. I have to give everything that I have. You know, like, otherwise, if I don't, God's not going to love me, and I'm not going to get blessed, and I'm not doing what I should and paying my service to God, right? Like, the damage and the abuse that comes from that, it's terrible when they... Okay, Heidi's looking at her watch. Does that mean that we have to get on to the next subject?
It means that you have spent over 6 minutes talking about a topic that is not the one we are advertising people to come listen to.
Okay, fine.
Either that or we need to not do that and just sit here talking
I mean,
about
I did
tithing.
segue a workaround.
You
I
did, she did.
and
She did a
Heidi
very good
picked it
job, and
up,
you didn't take it.
And then you guys just...
All right. All right. So we're continuing. This is going to be part 2, even though there was a 6-minute intro on sexual immorality.
Yes.
And Heidi has the bullet points. What are they?
So the first one,
I want to act
about-
like I remember them, but I don't. 'Cause looking at porn,
Okay, well, we're going to get there. But the first
Oh,
point was
well.
going to be the topic
that's why I need
of
to shut up.
living in sin. So living together with a boyfriend, girlfriend prior to marriage.
Oh, you... Okay.
What... I love how surprised he's like, oh, yeah, that's what we talked about.
Well, I didn't know we were adding this one to it. I thought this was about... I guess it is.
It's a 2-part
Okay.
thing, and this was part 1 of the 2-part thing.
Okay. Did you send me something
Yep,
on
a few
this?
times.
So
So
chat. We all read it.
we all spoke about it. So he's busy. He has a lot on his mind. I get that.
It's been a big couple of weeks. It's been a lot.
Honey, at this
Been
point,
a
you
bit.
might just want to and jump on the train when
Yeah, I'm just going to
it
agree.
starts going.
I'm just going to... Yeah. Like my mom. Just go, yep. That's right.
But the topic of, because this comes to us a lot, and it's something that churches really won't touch anymore, I think, because so many couples are, I mean, you
What's
think
the
back of like the
culture?
30s and 40s and living in sin, shacking up, you know, that type of a thing was complete bad. You did not do it. It was serious. You discussed these things. I mean, you lived with your parents until you were married, then you moved out. You know what I mean? Things were, you know, this very old fashioned way that we go about it. And so now that everybody lives together, right? I mean, you move out, you get your own place, you move in, you start as roommates, then you're dating. I mean, that type of thing is just all over the place. And it's our washer.
No,
it
I
sounds
was
like
more
the
co-
roof is falling in.
Yeah.
But that's just so normal now. I mean, if pastors stood up at the pulpit and said, hey, who here is living with someone that they are not married to? Who is having any type of sexual relations with that person? I mean, you'd lose the majority of your congregation
Right.
in most churches, especially these, you know, big, you know, mega church movements and things like that. Anybody that you've got kind of a large, you know, following in. Unfortunately, it's not just the younger people either. But if
No.
we were to take this topic kind of across the board, what are you going to do?
Yeah. So I think the beginning point we need to establish is the fact that boyfriend and girlfriend is not a biblical category.
No.
And so that's one of those things that's so countercultural or counterculture.
It just
to our
sounds
culture. Blah.
weird to say
Right.
that. Like,
it
how
is, and
that
it's
not-
and it's something. I mean, I can even think of fellow believers that I know that have teenage sons and daughters that they regularly talk about their boyfriends and girlfriends and
Yep.
coming over and doing it. And I'm just thinking, okay, I look at my daughter and I'm like, you won't have a boyfriend. Like,
Well, and
I will
we grew up that
guide
way,
you.
right? With having boyfriends and girlfriends and
Right.
doing all that. And it's funny because Brayden, we look at these things and we're like, this is stupid. I mean, we're just creating this time of adolescence and allowing kids to just go and flounder their way all through all these different things. And it's just ridiculous.
Well, and then you have people too that they go, well, you know, we've been together for X amount of time, and so that's common law, and therefore
Yeah.
we're married, and therefore it's not wrong.
Wasn't that Josh Harris's thing? No more dating.
Yes.
Wasn't that what that?
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
I don't like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
That's like, I think that's on the extreme side of it, though.
Yeah, he was. I
That's-
mean, I
that's
don't know
like,
a lot
we're
about
not-
his, but was he like super like Duggerish with his?
I don't know how. Do you know?
Well, I mean, here's the thing,
Remember.
though. As Christians, we want to make sure that even our lives demonstrate holiness, right? And one of the things is, if I am doing something that could bring reproach upon Christ, even if you're not physically carrying it to the ultimate end, right? So in other words, if I have my teenage daughter go off with a teenage boy alone somewhere, just the impression that can be given by that, right? Oh, they went to a movie. They went to the park. Wherever they go, okay, no. She is technically, by biblical standards, she is still my daughter. And until I give her hand in marriage, she is under my authority and my protection.
Which it's funny because all of this stuff now coming out of the wedding industry are like these cutesy symbolic things that we do that have absolutely no meaning. So here
Right.
you have, we do the giving the daughter away. And I mean, I even have to explain that dad stands, on this side because he's the last thing in between. It's like the whole like ritual way of what we do. But it's like, there's no meaning to this. They've been living together for 4 years. She's, been with 5 guys before him. You know what I mean? Like you go through this and it's just like, we're so far off from this now that these things sound just alien and crazy.
Right. So that's having to go back to what is right. I mean, so categorically, again, you will not find boyfriend, girlfriend in the Bible. You will find betrothed, which was basically marriage without sex because the man is still preparing the home, right? But if there was any adultery at that point, it was treated as adultery, not as fornication. Adultery was punishable by death. So it is as binding as marriage, but at the same time, they are not physically together. And that is the whole point of when you read through the Gospels, you get like the 10 young women, virgins, whatever, waiting for the bridegroom to come and to get them and for the ceremony because, hey, house is done, ready to go. I've provided for my wife now. We're going to go.
Well, and that's why he came at an hour. It was all a symbol,
Right,
but
and
he
it's
came
whenever
at
it
an
was
hour
done.
that you didn't know because it's when everything was done and there was a whole process
Exactly.
and all of the things.
So,
that happened.
and there's a beauty behind that. And so then there you have, right, the betrothal, right? And that's basically the process. And we often, we come from a romantic type where you fall in love with somebody, right? Now,
you have the
many times,
romantic proposal
Right.
and all of the things.
but in many times there's, we think it's just abhorrent to think of how families actually coordinated marriage between their son and this other family's daughter and how like Israel was all about that. And
Well, we have
you
this
learn
like
to love.
sour thought of that they just forced you, like you were forced to marry this person and you had no say. And, it was just this awful, horrible system. And it's like, okay, was it abused sometimes? Absolutely. I mean, we still see that in modern times in different cultures and things. But is it an awful idea for families to work together to find like a good, reputable person to take in your daughter? Like,
Yeah, like I know like the people that actually truly date in like a in an innocent way. Like just thinking back to my own personal experiences and being in the
Yeah.
shoes, going, yeah, we shouldn't have been in
yeah.
the positions
We
that
made
we were
horrible
in. We
decisions.
made horrible decisions. So I'm just thinking, I'm like, yeah, I didn't need to be in those positions.
I
Like,
doing
why
that
was
in the
I
first
there?
place?
When you can, get to know somebody in a group setting without being alone and inviting that temptation and
Thank
all
you.
of that.
Yeah,
So like a lot
I
of
think
the
that's
ways,
where.
a lot of the ways we see it enacted today appropriately, what we've
Yeah.
seen, because the physical church we go to, it's kind of small, and so you've got people they meet at church and stuff.
Sure.
And we've got these kids that have grown up, and then they hit their 20s, and they've kind of grown up with these people, and so you kind of see how do they handle all of that. And the pastor,
And that's important, I think. This is very important
two
because
of his kids, I don't know if the first one that got married, I think that they actually dated. I'm not sure though on that, like totally sure. But I know for sure that two of them, they kind of just grew up with these people and were like, you know what, I'm pretty sure I'm going to marry that person. And they would, pray on it. And they would all, the kids would all get together and they would hang out and be group settings, and they would go to each other's houses, again, group settings, things like that. But we're very, very careful to not be alone. And one of the couples, in fact, like took a lot of times apart where they're like, we need to make sure that we're not putting the other in place of Jesus. And in fact, one of them, that they just recently got married, like in the last 2 years, they weren't even like together in quotation marks anymore. They had taken another separation because he knew that he would not get her family's blessing, and he refused to marry her if there was no blessing. And so he actually walked away, and she's like, I'm so confused. God, you told me this is going to be. And like the family, they ended up going to another church for distance reasons and stuff. And she stayed because she's like, I know this is going to be where I'm at. And so it's funny, for like 3 or 4 months, they are not speaking. The next time that they really have any kind of like, other than, hey, how are you conversation, is when he surprises her with a proposal during service.
Oh, that's right. I
Where
remember
the
you telling me
pastor-
about that.
Our
Yeah.
pastor was going over what betrothal is, and he goes, here, we're going to have some people act it out. This is a certificate of betrothal. Here, I'm going to get a young lady. Here, you
cute
come
is
up
that?
here.
That is funny.
Which is not unusual for him. Here, you come up here. I'm going to get you over here. And then all of a sudden, her parents, who don't attend that church anymore, are there, and it like they officially
cute.
get engaged, and were married within 5 weeks of that happening.
Wait, and that's another thing, to be married within 5 weeks, right? Like people are like, at least a year-long engagement is
Right.
totally
well,
the
because
norm.
you want to
and-
know, right? You need to know.
Yeah, you got to
that.
live
I
together for a
sure-
while. You got to make sure you really like this
Yeah.
person. You got to plan out this huge expensive thing. I mean, we get asked this question because, between our kids and your kids, our son is the oldest of dating age. He's
Right.
15. And we've had people ask us, like, you homeschool, how's he going to get to date? How's he going to do this stuff? And we're like,
Well, yeah,
that's not a focus and
it's
priority
not-
of what we're
it's
working
not,
on.
But I think Alexis hit it the key. I think so. Like what the idea that we're getting at here is, it is important that they are around some sort of not dating thing, but a group setting, at least to be able to meet and interact with, right?
Yeah, if God has a mate for you, you have to
Right,
be
you have
around
to find
other
it. We
people.
don't, and
in
we don't want
order
to just
find-
raise them up and then just send them out into the world and be like, "Good luck, dude.
Good luck, go find
Good
a
luck.
godly wife."
Good luck, find a godly
Which
wife."
is where the Josh Harris thing totally
And that's-
Exactly,
yeah.
and that's
that was
what the problem
extreme,
is.
where it was, they're promoting this idea of courtship, which I love in theory, but
Yes.
what was happening, the whole purpose behind it was, well, if God has a spouse for you, he's just going to basically bring them to your doorstep. And here you have all these people that are like, God, I'm waiting for you to bring me this guy that I've never
So I've
talked
put
to.
together this list of the perfect man that
Yeah.
God's going to give me, and I'm going to sit here until that person shows up. And that's where you have all these
Yeah.
people now that are like, I'm 40 and single because
Right.
I've been waiting.
Well, and but all this comes back to family and
Yes.
community, right?
Yes.
I think there's, especially I think in the last couple generations, families tended to stay together, and now that we have better forms of transportation,
Yep.
teenagers are driving off at 16. I mean, I
Oh,
was
yeah.
going 4 hours away to the beach.
Yeah.
Like,
That's insane.
yeah, which is, it is
That's
insane.
so crazy.
And I would never let my daughter do that. Now that
I know
think
the
about it,
things
it's
at
like,
16 that you did.
Right.
I'm like, that was a real dumb time.
Where were my
Listen,
parents?
when I was 16, me and one other girl, we were part of this big friend group, like 8 guys that were older, 17, 18 years old. Always going and hanging out at one of the guys' houses.
That's
they
a
all had
horrible
their
idea.
own cars. They had, my dad walked home from a deployment, or maybe it was a training thing. We never went and met with him. He would just kind of show up, and I'd be like, cool, my dad's here. He walks in full camis and all of his bags and everything. And I'm sitting, we had this U-shaped couch, and I'm sitting, my friend's sitting or opposite ends of the room, and we've got all of these basically men,
yeah.
17, 18,
Filling your
19-year-old
father's
men
home.
Oh,
sitting
man.
around his daughter, and he's just like, okay, that happened. Okay. And then at 17, 17, 18 is when I met Travis. And then it just so happened, they were on opposite deployment schedules. And so my dad would be deployed when Travis was home. And then Travis would deploy, and my dad came home. And so he's getting all of these emails from my mom about how he would come to my house every weekend and sleep on the couch. So stupid. I'm sorry if my parents are listening to this right now. My dad would agree, though, but that should never have been allowed. And I totally get it now. But we were so of course it should be allowed. Why wouldn't
Why
it be
would
allowed?
there be
We're
an
not
issue?
doing anything wrong.
Well, I
Mom.
remember being that age and thinking, what's the problem?
Right.
You remember their weird
But
situations.
now
and,
this is we lucked out because we ended up marrying one another and staying
Right.
together and all this
And
other
that
stuff.
doesn't
Right.
really
But this is now but now because of this, starting in adolescence, you have adults 20s, 30s, 40s, and so on that are doing these same exact things with this like teenage, like, well, what's the big deal? I'm an adult. He's an adult, like whatever. And a various list of twisted scriptures
Right.
to back up their thing, you know, but now this is being like a teenage problem. I mean, this has moved all the way through now.
Because there's this general consensus that there should always be an out clause.
Yeah.
Like, I don't believe in divorce, but I need to be with someone for X amount of time just to make sure we're compatible. And here's the thing. Here's the secret that nobody ever wants to tell, nobody ever wants to talk about, is at the end of the day, you will hate the person you marry at points.
Yeah.
Because that's a work in you that needs to be done. You getting over yourself and understanding what the wife's role and what the husband's role. The husband's role, I think, is harder. Love your wife as Christ loved the church. Like that sacrificial
Weight on your
love.
shoulder, guys.
Like, I mean, all I have to do is respect you. Listen, right?
I'm glad that's all it is, right?
I mean, that's it, right? Like
that.
That's it, right? That's all I have to do.
No, obviously it's more, but like that's a pretty heavy thing. But it's, you know, people are taught this ideal that with the right personality combination and the right amount of time and the right preparation,
Everything
that
will
you're
be
going
perfect.
to avoid
Yeah.
all of that. And if you're fighting with the person you with, you better see how long that fighting lasts and how bad does it get, because that might be your cue to hit the eject button from that relationship and try and find somebody else.
Yep.
And so they're raising their kids with this idea of, you know, well, I don't want my kid to be miserable. Of course you don't. I don't
Yeah,
want my
nobody
daughter to be
wants.
miserable. We don't want, you know,
Yeah.
our kids to be miserable, but come on. Like, selling this fairy tale
Yeah.
that you are ever going to be in a relationship with anybody where it is just all sunshine and rainbows and roses and butterflies all over the place. That is so just not accurate.
Well, it just reminds me, you know, Christ loved the church even when they were disobedient
Yeah.
and when they did things that they weren't supposed to. That's part of the love, and I'm not saying like I must love you. You know, that's, let me get to my point.
Take that,
There
wife.
was there was times even when I can think of like Christ coming down off of the Mount of Transfiguration, remember, and the other apostles were there, and the guy comes up and he's like, they couldn't cast out this demon. What's the deal?
Yeah.
And what is his response? He's like, how long do I got to be with this perverse and wicked generation? Like, really? But it's, you know, there is a form of love that is missed, and it comes from our culture and this westernized idea of, well, love is this just, it's only romantic. No, actually love is doing the hard things for that person when they can't. That's what the whole idea of is, in sickness and in health, right? For lesser or poor, like I mean, for
better or
For
worse,
better or worse,
let me tell
you
you,
know,
some of those
rich or
seasons
poor.
are worse,
The whole-
and some of those worst seasons are because of the person you're with,
Yep.
and some of them are because of you. It's not always just outside circumstances. It's not always, you know.
But that's the importance of commitment.
Right.
And that's the whole point, is there is no such thing as commitment in a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship
No.
because, well, it's not binding. We're not actually married. Why not? Again, that's why it's not a biblical category. And then you got to put into that, because this all goes back to sexual immorality. So are you telling me you are being obedient to God and not lusting for that person?
Yeah, but some people seem to think, oh, well, I'm abstaining and it's okay, which, by the way, you still also have to be aware, if you're claiming Christ and you're living with someone of the opposite sex and you're claiming that there's nothing going on, your claim really has nothing to do with the perception that people have. So are you giving people the perception of sin? That matters. But on the flip side of that, I totally lost my train of thought.
Well, I'll play off of that.
It happened.
No, yeah.
So
We're all
there was
watching.
an example that I think it was Paul Washer that gave, and it hits home. It's like, okay, this woman came over to the pastor's house. Pastor's wife was gone.
Oh, yeah.
She brought cookies to bake. And then somebody comes back or answers the door, a member from the church. And she answers the door in a baking apron or whatever. And, you know, dough and stuff. And the pastor's got his apron on. And they're like,
And there's no one else in the
we're
house."
just making cookies. Really?
Kind of
Like,
awkward.
that's so inappropriate.
If you come over to my house and my husband and some woman are upstairs baking cookies, I better
That's
get a
a
phone
problem.
call because I have an issue with that, right? Like that would be
Yeah.
any normal response of like, Can we please
Right.
go a little further here?
So
Right.
then how does that look when you are living with another person?
My point was, even if you're abstaining, thank you. So even if you're abstaining, though, people seem to forget that the lust is actually just as much of a problem.
Yeah.
It's just as much of a sin to lust. If you've lusted after someone, you've committed adultery.
Because I can think of plenty of times that Brandon and I were unwed and maybe not in a certain act, but the thought process was certainly just as bad.
And if you've committed it in your heart, it's the same thing. You've still committed it. It's still viewed as that way. And so people think that they have this loophole. You don't have the loophole. You don't. You just don't.
And if you're
But-
living
so
with
what
someone of
about-
the opposite sex, you're not sleeping with them, you're not having any of these thoughts whatsoever, then like, are you really on the path to a healthy marriage anyway? Like, I mean, because you think of people that are like, well, I'm not doing that, I'm not doing that, I'm not doing. Okay, well then now we've just gotten into some really weird,
let's
obscure
talk about
thing.
though, because I feel like this is a two-part problem, right? So we've identified this is wrong.
I
It
think
shouldn't
you're
be here.
moving into where I wanted to go
But
with
you
this.
hear a lot of people saying,
is.
I had no choice.
There we go.
There's always a reason, especially for Christians. Well, I moved in with him because if I didn't, I would have had to live on the streets. Like
Financially, I couldn't.
Well, this is
financially,
it. This is
or I
important.
have no choice. I have to stay. I can't leave.
It's an important point to make is that, like, say, for instance, we have somebody that came to faith, true faith in Christ in the church, that this happened when her and her boyfriend were living together. Mm-hmm. Then they find themselves in this position where they're like, man, we've been living together for this long. We just now came to Christ. And that's not necessary. That may be a little bit of a process. It should be an immediate process, right? If you come to Christ and then you're like, hey, oh, you're living with this guy and he's not your husband, that's got to be the first thing that you're going to want to take care of. One of the first things you're going to want to take care of. However, there's certain situations where that can't happen.
Right.
And this is 1 in a million. Like 1 in a million.
Like, I can't tomorrow go out.
Because this is definitely not the model, and this is definitely not but this is the, I mean.
But it's not that we don't do anything. You just have a process there that you're working through, right?
It's working on it, but it may take time. That may be a legitimate excuse. Only
but are
because,
you actively working toward?
But that, like I said, that's 1 in a million, and that's not something that people. And that's also an excuse that people abuse all the time. Well,
Right.
I just need a little bit of time. No, okay, fine. Then if you need a little bit of time, then are you two living apart? Are you like?
I have a question because this is something I've heard of this scenario before more than once. What if one person gets saved, the other person does not?
Right.
Do you know, because a lot of people seem to be under the impression that the solution would every time be, we'll just get married. Because that woman is not going to want to, especially if it's the woman first, they still love that man, in quotation marks, and they're going to find all sorts of reasons why they cannot leave him. Mm-hmm. But what if he's not a godly man?
Well, then,
do you
I mean,
instruct them to leave, or do you encourage
no, your
them to
faith,
get married?
your faith does not allow you to continue a sexual relationship with that person.
No, but
I don't.
Right.
would you
Or
instruct them
to
if
go
they
and
said,
marry
well,
an
he
unbeliever?
proposed and we'll get married, but he's not a godly man, he's not interested in it?
Oh,
saying?
well, no, no. I think that cover. I think you actually have it up. Do you have 1 Corinthians? Yeah.
Well,
I
that would cover the unequally yoked concept.
But they're not
How-
married.
Right.
Well, but I mean, no. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think that you continue in that because wife. What I was going to say is, wife, you don't know if you're going to save your husband.
Right.
So you would
But
continue.
that's not the husband.
But we're talking about.
But we're talking if they do get married,
No.
right?
I'm saying, would you advise it?
Right.
As a pastor, a woman
Okay.
comes to you and says, I've just gotten saved.
Right.
I'm with this man. He's totally of the world. He's not saved, but I love him. He's proposed to me, and I don't want to be apart from him. Will you marry me?
Would I
you do
advise
it?
that marriage?
Would you perform the ceremony?
Of a believing
Or would you
I
woman
could.
say, no,
to
you
an
need to run
unbeliever?
far and fast because the Lord will have a godly man for you. You wait for him to be a godly man.
That's a tough one. I'll grant that.
I would have to. That would have to be a case basis because it
'Cause
would
I
have to
think that's
depend on the
you
person's.
have to go through
It would
the
have to
counseling.
depend on like this person's faith, where they were, and everything else. Because if I thought that this person could truly lead this other person to Christ, Say, like you said, it's an unbeliever. But we don't know if once this union
Doesn't
happens.
the Bible specifically tell you, though, to not marry someone in an unequally yoked way? So then wouldn't you be
unequally
advising them to
yoked
go
is
against-
correctly applied to that. It is correctly applied.
Yeah.
In context, it's talking about teachers.
Right.
So it being in amongst these people that were opposing Paul,
Right.
and he's like, Corinthians, don't be unequally yoked with these people that are opposing me. It's a correct applications to use
Right.
towards marriage.
Right.
Right. We should not be unequally yoked with an unbeliever. But that's just, it doesn't specify when this, when this faith happens. Because if we're just girlfriend and boyfriend, and then like I come, this is where you get into real technical issues. Like people always have this, we'll see, but, and so that's where it's like really hard to get around to give an honest answer whether or not.
I feel like it's not always cut and dry, though. And I feel like that's why the importance of having counseling before marriage. Because we don't have that. Okay.
I
Because
guess my service answer would be no,
Right.
but I would leave it open to counsel and figure out the
because
situation.
the family used to do this. The family units used to work together and do premarital counseling. Right? They used to look,
Correct.
they would look at background and all these different
Right.
things. We don't do that anymore.
But is she
right? Our
saying that
families are far from that.
he's not a godly man, but I truly believe that the Lord is going to use me to turn him to Christ.
Well,
And-
I think every girl thinks that she's put in a guy's life to make
Change
him
them.
something
Yeah.
different.
Sure.
So they're always going to think that their job. I thought every boy I ever had a crush on, God wanted me to love so that I would
But-
make him stronger. In
But I mean, if
Jesus.
this situation is in front of us, I mean, yes, we have this. It is a huge decision, but I would think if I had this decision in front of me, and somebody is really that adamant about that, saying that like the only way I need to lock him into a commitment, and
This all
I
just
don't know.
gets so weird.
So I like I said, I guess my answer is no, but I can definitely see arguments in that
Yeah.
answer. Is
Trav?
my answer to that.
You've been quiet.
Yeah, personally, I think I would lean on, okay, he wants to get married. Why? You have faith in Christ. Let's go over some scriptures now that would actually cover some of these points, because like one of the duties of the husband is to train up the kids in the way of the Lord. So I would have to counsel her and say, if he doesn't know
It
the
is,
Lord,
yeah.
you want to now create this binding marriage, knowing that fellowship, light does not have fellowship with darkness. So you are going to create this union already that is not there yet. Even if you have kids, I mean, that's where the challenge would come. But the husband is supposed to do this. And just like you pointed out, Brandon, you don't know if the wife's going to save the husband.
Right.
Like, so
I don't know.
I would have to caution against it. And then the focus would be, okay, put this aside. If you think he's going to turn to Christ, then let's cover the gospel. Let's pour the gospel over this man until either he
Focus
repents
on
and turns,
that
or he
first.
runs and flees because he wants nothing to do with it.
It would make me go, why would, as a knowing, if you're a true believer and you're knowing that he's an unbeliever, why is this not more of a problem for you?
Yeah.
Like, why are you not getting up and going, listen, dude, I love Christ way more than I love you. And if you're not going to be with me here on this path,
Well, if you're not
then-
willing to lose this man because of Christ, then you're
that's
not
what I'm
willing
saying.
to
That's
walk
what
with Christ
that's
across
my
the
point
board.
was. Is
Yeah.
if you're not willing to do that for Christ, why are you so adamant about coming in and wanting
Right.
that? So there's many.
I agree that I think that there could be certain instances that through a counseling process, because I feel like sometimes some guys aren't there yet, but they're like a string away, right? And sometimes it takes that, hey,
So we have
I'm
a
serious,
we
this
have
is what I'm doing. Get on or get off, you know?
we have a permission from a church member to share her story. We don't have to say her name, but you know the story. You read the whole thing.
Okay.
That was, I think that just fits along in with this. The one that she just sent.
Okay.
So the situation though is they both came to true faith in Christ when they were living together. That's why
Right.
I was mentioning this.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I've got like the one exception that I've
Yeah.
read, and so like
Right.
now I think this is like the norm and everything. Like that's just like at the top of my head, I guess. But they came to truth, and they were like, well, gosh, and then they had to go through marriage counseling when they came to faith.
And they'd
or
been
whatever.
together for like 8 years.
Yeah,
at
they've
this
been
point.
together
I mean,
forever.
they've been together for a long time.
And the pastor of their church made them agree to 6 or a year
a year
of marital counseling before he would marry them.
That's wrong.
Right, but it was a Pentecostal church. So, but I mean, she did come to faith through this church, and remember, she was saved in spite of not that way, not because of that way.
Right.
Well, that's the key. In spite of the
In spite of the
circumstances,
in
right?
spite of the circumstances, that she was saved away from that. But she did come to the faith, going, "Oh, I need to get married. This is wrong. I'm living in sin. I need to get married." But it was because of what was the reason that they couldn't right away?
I think it was because
Other than the marital counseling, I thought there was one more thing.
No, I think it was
okay.
just
So it was
the
just the
marital-
marital
yeah.
counseling. So that between that whole year,
because they didn't want to go get
wouldn't
married
marry
like
him.
just through a civil thing or whatever. They
Which-
wanted it from the.
By the way, I mean, I know who you're talking about, and I have to give kudos to her and to him for they are getting this counsel from a pastor
Sure.
that at the time, I don't know if they still do, but at the time they trusted, and kudos to them for sticking with it because
Oh.
that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
That's a lot. So that's
This
where
is
you
the one in the
know-
million.
But that one
Yeah.
in a million that says you're right. I'm living in sin.
Right.
Right. But that's
Either
what I'm
both
saying,
of us
and-
need to strengthen our relationship with the Lord first,
Or
or this
I'm just
isn't
saying
going to
this
work.
is a person. This is to answer the excuse of saying that
Yeah.
I can't. It's impossible for me to marry. Or
so then
what do I do?
What's the advice then for people, that are in this situation? Maybe they're feeling and they've been feeling convicted for a while, but you've got 2 lives wrapped together. They're not married, but your life still very much. You've got bills that you're paying together. You've got some of these people have kids.
Yeah.
it is. I can see how some of the process to people that are listening. That I can see how yes, this is frustrating for
And
some
the
people.
response is always, yeah, but they don't know my situation.
Right. And
Yeah.
listen,
You don't know my situation.
listen, I understand your situation is frustrating and I understand, but the end of the day, this does boil down to having to be subject, rendering unto Caesar what Caesar's to. If this is what we have got to do to make this, and biblically, this is what we've always had to do. There's
And
always
if what
had to
you're
be
doing
some-
falls on that list of will not inherit the kingdom of heaven,
who do
why
we think we're
is
talking
this
about?
not a bigger deal?
And if you don't
to
understand you clearly don't understand the Bible if you don't understand why this is not a big deal, because this immorality and this is the ultimate example of our depravity with God.
There's a part of me that wants to go very extreme and be like, any new believer who's not already married needs to take a page out of like the Alcoholics Anonymous group and just don't be with anybody for a year.
Well, and that's
No
like
major
Paul's
life
point, right?
changes.
Where Paul's like, you know what?
you
Just
need
don't
to
get
focus
married.
on you right now and make sure you are strengthened. And honestly, that's probably the ideal, but I also know it's very unrealistic. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to do that. I was built to be married. And I don't know that I would have been able to just
Well, Paul
not
straight up
try
says,
to
I
find-
recommend that
Yeah.
control yourself and don't get married. Marriage should only be because you can't control yourself anymore,
Right.
right? Like where he's like,
Well, and it's funny now though it's exactly those we're seeing this other culture that's rising up where I don't even know the terms for these anymore, but they're nothing like they're like what Paul what is it? Hey, is it asexual? No.
Yeah.
Is it asexual?
Oh, yeah.
I get them mixed up, but it's where you no longer identify with it. You're it's
No.
binary.
Bi-
You no
non-binary?
longer.
Well, you're just talking about all the gender confusion nonsense that's
Yeah,
going
yeah,
on.
yeah. But the
in-
Well,
ones
right,
who
but
now
I'm saying-
you're no
You're talking
longer
about pan?
male
You're
or
talking about
pan?
female. You're completely.
No,
Oh,
here.
androgynous.
Is that
Maybe
what it
that's
is?
it.
Or are they just or people that or the people that are just they're not gay, they're not straight, they're not bi,
Just
they don't-
completely
they're
cut off of
not
everything.
yeah,
They're
they're
eunuchs.
basically eunuchs.
that would be a biblical eunuch.
Yeah.
No desire for sex.
Right, exactly. So but there's like a huge rise in that
Yeah.
lately.
Those are usually the
Like-
people that end up marrying cats or like computers or something.
True.
Have you seen that? I mean, it's a thing.
No, but I mean, the blessing that comes from that is if they are a true follower of Christ,
Sure.
that would not be a hindrance for wanting
Ultimate
to start a family.
dedication
And it can be
to go
ultimate
serve Christ.
dedication,
Yeah.
right? And that could
And
be
that's
some of the
amazing.
greatest
If
work
that's
that you
but
do.
if that's what we were truly seeing people striving toward.
I think
in-
we've
in
talked about
working
this
toward.
before. I mean, think about that. I mean, in a way, if I was not born to be married and have children and everything, and I was single, the things that you could do to serve. I mean, all over the world, you literally could go.
your
serve
wife
all
and
the world.
children are
I
total
would be
baggage
going
holding
like
you
Paul
back.
Washer,
It
going
is.
and trying to get persecuted in these third world countries. If I was, I would. I'd be out trying to, but that's not the case for everybody. That is that type of devotion that you can give to Christ.
Well, right, and I think there's a danger in elevating marriage to a point of idolatry,
Sure.
where everybody
Absolutely.
must
Oh,
get married.
100%.
No, but at the same time, I think there's also recognizing that marriage is also a godly design.
Yes.
Be fruitful and multiply was still both in the garden to Adam and Eve
Yep.
and to Noah and his sons
Yep.
and daughters, right?
Mhm.
Hey, that's still, even after the curse, that was still a biblical mandate. And how do you do that? Is through family, right? Through husband and wife. And Christ upholds that in Matthew 19. So that should be important. And that's what kind of ties all this back is family is important. We've lost sight of that, especially in our culture. We are so independent. I mean, I could think of how, like, going back to why I said I was driving 4 hours away at 16. It's because I wanted to be away from my parents. I didn't want to be under their authority. I didn't want to do that. So there's no, again, I wasn't honoring my father and mother. So you can see how this all comes together. I wasn't honoring my father and mother. I wasn't loving God. Because if I did, I would have honored my father and mother.
Interestingly,
right?
that's how we ended up living together. You
Right.
didn't want to be under your parents' authority. You did
Right.
not want to live at their house anymore. He got offended by
Yeah,
something.
but
you
how
had
much
said.
how much trouble did that cause?
Oh, so much
I mean, we were
trouble.
borderline
So, but
falling
let's
apart.
talk about
constantly.
then. Let's talk about then. What does it? We're harping against this, right? And we're telling people, listen, God, he can't. If you are willfully living this way, and you have no interest or
God does
desire
not bless
to change
what
it,
His word.
God can't bless
Damn,
you.
yeah.
He won't bless you. It's not, it's not great. But let's talk about then what can you look forward to? Say you do go out tomorrow and you get married and you have a ceremony, or you go to a JP just to make it right as quickly as possible. What then will it look like for those people when God does have a hand in their relationship with the person they've chosen to be with, especially if you have kids? What is that going to look like for them? Because people need a reason. They need to understand, like, it is better. I know it seems scary and complicated, but it is better. But how?
Well, that goes back to what is honoring God, loving God,
Yeah.
your focus, right? Because even in the case of the two young believers who had to go through the year of counseling, my next question would have been, did they still allow you to live together? Or because you thought, you know what, this is going to be tough. We are, dual incomes, we're barely
Was that part of the
scraping by.
commitment?
I don't remember.
What's that?
I was just
But,
trying to
but
remember.
yeah, but just in the idea of, even in that case, okay, now you know that even by perception, you can bring reproach upon the name of Christ by living together in the same location. Are you ready to sacrifice more by separating because you know that honors God more, right? We
What are your
always want to give
priorities?
excuses
Yeah.
for it, right? And so the tougher thing is following after Christ. I mean, that's the whole point. Pick up your cross and follow after me. That's a death march. You don't
Yeah.
get freedoms. It's focus upon Christ. And so, yeah, is there going to be difficulty worldly? But can God still bless that? And that's the thing, is there is God honoring blessing that comes through that, right? And who are we giving glory to? We're giving glory to
Well,
God.
so the hope I was trying to put out there is one of the things you can look for is that if you are living with constant conviction and constant guilt of your situation as a Christian, because you go through it, you know it's wrong and you're being defiant against it, yes, but you're still feeling this constant, it can cause depression, it can cause all of these things. You go make that right out of obedience, not because of approval of anybody but God, but out of obedience. I want to make this right with the Lord. Now you don't have that conviction. Now you don't have that added stress in your relationship. Now you can be on a team. God will then bless your parenting and unity with your children if you have kids already. There's a lot to look forward to, because it's even harder for the Christian who is defiantly saying, I will not change my situation. I will not do it. And then for you to then turn around and change that, you are going to get some kind of relief from having, because here you have God's hand removed completely from your situation.
Yep. And
now
he is
that
not
you
going to be
have
stepping
God
in and
back-
blessing you when you were living in opposition to him.
Yes, so that's kind of I think the point I was trying to make is that it is infinitely better. Like, yeah, you don't do it because you necessarily want things to be better. Do it for obedience, but there is a relief from that.
And I think I know what you're going. The whole, why would you still wait to get married? That's the focus, right? Because
Right.
scripturally, and this is what plays back on, you remember the 3 couples you talked about earlier with the pastor's family.
Mm-hmm.
The first couple went through this where, hey, yeah, they realized that they started having these urges for one another that
And
were
they had been
unbiblical.
engaged and they had been
Right.
planning this huge wedding up at Biltmore and all this stuff.
And so what ended up happening was
So expensive.
he went to his own dad without and just said, look,
the pastor.
1 Corinthians 7 verse 9 says, but if they do not have self-control, let them marry, for it is better to marry than to burn with passion. So he took his girlfriend, essentially, went down and went to the justice of peace, got married. And even his pastor dad, who knew the scriptures, goes, I have to honor that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the right
Yeah.
thing to do. If what you're saying is you can't wait, and both of you are professing
Go
believers
get
in
married.
Christ,
Just be done.
why wait?
Well,
And
people
that's the
go,
point.
well, that's so drastic. If you're already planning to get married, then no, it's not drastic. Like, the point of coming together with somebody of the opposite sex is marriage. So if your purpose in being with this person is not to say, hey, the end line we're going to here is marriage, then what are you doing?
Here's what gets me. Here's what these people don't think about. You don't know who your husband is. You don't know who his wife is. Not yet, right? But assuming that ultimately God had someone for them, or that they were going to, if it's not you,
Yeah.
if you're not going to get married, you're saying, that's not me, I'm not your wife.
Yeah.
You're sleeping with somebody else's husband.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Like, you are having thoughts. They might not have met her yet.
Mm-hmm.
They may not be with her yet. But you are now taking something from somebody else that's not yours.
Yeah.
So if you want it to be yours,
You are kissing someone's husband. You are lusting after someone's husband. You're
so
sleeping with
if you
someone's
don't
husband.
want that to be someone else's husband, you want that to be your husband, then you need to get married. Because by refusing, you are flat out saying, I don't care that I'm stealing someone else's husband. Because if they're not yours, they're someone else's.
Yeah.
So either claim what you believe to be yours or let it go.
It's really that simple. Like, I understand, like, there's things, but I mean, at the bottom line, that's.
And look, I get it. Like, I have someone in my life that has been like for 2 to 3 months now has been feeling very convicted. I need to be married, right? And this person has been jumping through hoops. The way things work in their state, it was very difficult to find somebody and work schedules. And so there were all of these things and this, they've lived through just the strain and the stress of, and so they're actively wanting to make it right without, I mean, they're still living together and, there's, it would be difficult and all of this stuff, but I still think the correct course of action in that instance would have been, then you need to separate until you are married. But the point is that, there are obstacles, there are things that happen, thankfully it looks like things are coming around for them. They've got the process started. It is still going to take a little bit of time. But it happens. Like, it does happen.
So what's his
Your mic's off.
Go ahead. Sorry. My mic was on mute. Travis, you pulling up a verse?
I was trying to find it. Maybe you can remember it. One
Okay,
of
I'll
the
try.
one of the distinctives of false teachers was prohibiting marriage
Yeah.
in that whole passage, and I forget
Some will
where
say-
that was,
Isn't that they will say it's wrong to be married?
but it was
Is that Galatians?
maybe it is in Galatians. That might make sense. But it was essentially this list, and it's like warning against false teachers. And in the list, you think, okay, these are going to be terrible things. And one of the first things mentioned was literally prohibiting marriage.
Yeah.
Even that's why I said, even when that pastor said a year, you got to wait a year. Why? Okay, I
First
get you want.
Timothy
Okay,
4:3.
Oh wow, I was
There you
way
go.
wrong. Timothy.
I was looking at First Timothy. I think I was looking, or Second Timothy. I was looking. So
Yeah.
First Timothy 4:3.
4:3, I believe.
All right, let me pull it up.
I was way off.
You probably have it up.
The power. of
Yeah,
Google.
but the Spirit, verse 1, chapter 4. But the Spirit explicitly says that in latter times some will fall away from the faith, paying attention to deceitful spirits and doctrines of demons, by means of the hypocrisy of liars, seared in their own conscience, conscience as with the branding iron. So what does that look like? Men who forbid marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So you get this huge buildup and you go, oh man, this is going to be crazy. And the first thing listed is men who forbid marriage and advocate abstaining from fruits. Interesting how those two things go together.
I broke that down to a guy one time. I remember just a couple of weeks ago, that verse. Well, it was longer than that now.
But that's the point.
But yeah, exactly.
If you are both fellow believers, there's no reason to wait.
Yeah.
And it is.
get
It's
married.
because our culture tells us you got to have this big wedding. You got to go through this whole process. You got to be engaged for a year and a half or whatever.
And you got to get the
As a
dress
trial,
and do all
like-
the things. I mean, we were in the wedding industry. People spend tens of thousands of dollars on every single wedding. It's such a waste. It's ridiculous. And I had one couple, and we did hundreds of weddings, hundreds. And I had one couple that loosely new Christians felt convicted shortly after they got engaged, decided they were going to abstain until they were married. Had a great wedding. It was beautiful with their family, the whole thing. Got pregnant on their honeymoon and now have built an amazing family, growing in the Lord, doing all of these different things. Like to see how they were blessed because of that. You know what I mean? See these different things where they...
Something I just wanted to point out, because I know that this can be a thing for people too, but like I can tell you that for us, in our experience, we were married by a justice of the peace. We had a wedding ceremony, but we were not married by like a religious authority figure.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never once felt like God didn't bless us because of
Sure.
that. And I know that there are a lot of people out there that go, well, I can't get married because I can't find a pastor at a church. It's okay.
We went to the
Vegas.
courthouse in Vegas. Okay.
Yeah.
We did too.
It doesn't get like the people you see in the morning at the courthouse in Vegas. Y'all don't even know.
Yeah, that
Like
was
you
interesting.
do not even know.
That was interesting. That was an interesting
Like I don't
day.
think it gets any less. And I was underage, so my mom had to be there to be like, yes, it's okay. Like you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
So I just wanted to point that out though, because I do know that there are people that they go, well, I want to get married, but I'm not a member of a church and I have to be a member for the pastor to do it. Or the pastor is making me go through X amount of weeks, months, years of counseling and I don't want to wait, but I don't want, it's about
Go get married.
submitting to the governing authority on all of that, on how that, so but I've never once felt that our marriage was less blessed.
Well, I had something. Well, so my thought was this, which goes back to the whole point of how we've moved away from families and like father being an authority over the daughter. This all plays into it because why does a pastor feel that he has to counsel these two? Because there's
the
been
family has
no
it, yeah.
guidance. There's been nobody as a witness to say, yeah, this man is a godly man. He has, he's in the word. He's praying for this lady. Like the
He's
pattern
going
of
to
his
take
life
care of her and do what
demonstrates that
he's
he is going to
supposed to
be
do.
a good husband. I bless it. Let's go. Why wait? Right? If you want to have a ceremony, fine. Hopefully you're living apart, but let's do this the right way.
but like my
But
dad
again-
couldn't tell you 10 things about Brandon.
Right.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like most spouses, like I mean, we've done weddings before where the families were meeting for the first time at the rehearsal.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
It's
And that's-
bananas.
right.
Like
That would
it's
be
so
mine.
backwards. Yeah, I mean,
I know I'm on mute.
yeah,
That would be my fountain.
because you're eating sunflower.
Yeah,
seeds.
because I need sunflower seeds.
Like, do we need to stop and break for lunch? Or?
It is that time. We're all over.
Okay, so let's wrap up this point because I know don't we have another one on the same topic?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is already an hour though.
So we're probably gonna have to split this into two.
All right.
Yeah. So bottom line,
bottom
final
line.
remarks on.
Get married and wait. I have a statement that's kind of out left field, I guess. You don't need when we were talking about this. I'm like, wait a minute. Why are you waiting for you don't need a pastor to do a wedding. You need an officiant. You don't need a pastor. Not all pastors do weddings. You
Yeah.
don't I'm not licensed to be an officiant because I purposely did not take that class.
Right. So
I,
yeah.
like-
that's the point is you don't feel like you have to wait for a pastor.
Yeah.
God's still gonna bless it if you simply have an officiant.
Yeah.
or
The
point is
apparently
the
An
legal
officiant.
and
And an
societal-
officiant is going to do a biblical marriage. Like it's going to be, and you can still find a pastor. That's the point is not all officiants are Christian, but you can
And
find
not
an
all
officiant that is
pastors
a
are
Christian.
officiants.
unfortunately.
Exactly. So
Well, maybe the follow-up question to this, which would be, okay, what does officially make a marriage?
Exactly.
Because that would be the next thing. Well,
Because
okay,
people twist that big time.
like does just coming together equal marriage?
Yep. Which I've had multiple people tell
Right.
us.
And you know what? And you play that mind. When you don't know God's word and when you don't really think about how it all comes together and being under authority of the governing like body, right? Jesus told them, pay your taxes, right? Render to Caesar what is Caesar's, render to God what is God's. The whole point is you were created in God's image, so you obey God's law, but that doesn't excuse you from obeying the law of the land, right? Israel was not a free nation at that point. They were under the authority of Rome, which is why they couldn't just take Jesus and stone him, even though there's a few times where they wanted to, right? They had to take him to the Roman governor, Pontius Pilate, and say, he's broken a law in our law. We need you to kill him now. And he's like, well, what law is that? Oh, ultimately it's blasphemy.
Yeah.
Right? And he's like, well, that means
would
nothing to me.
Well, and that's the point because people argue that point so much. And it's like, okay, what are the laws of the land and the societal customs for marriage? Because, right, if we're talking to an American couple, that's going to look totally different than a couple in Asia, a couple in Africa, a couple in wherever, right? Like, it's different. People argue that, well, in Bible times, it was this, and we don't get married like they did then, so blah, 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 whatever. It's like, no, the point is, what is the cultural and legal and just societal norm for marriage in wherever you find yourself that you are a part of, right? Be it an American, whatever it is, right? Doesn't matter.
Yeah, but there was always an agreement by the authorities,
Yeah.
which is where it
Yeah.
comes from. And the fact that oftentimes, even if there was not a government, because I know a lot of people can point back
Exactly.
to Abraham
There was
and his
still
sons, Isaac,
a-
right? Taking
But that's where
Rebecca.
cultural comes in too. There was a
Right.
cultural process for these
Which they
things
did,
that
and they
worked.
went
But
through.
if you remember, even in that passage, because if you just isolate the fact that Rebecca comes and sees him in the field, they had never even met before, and what do? He takes her into his mother's tent, and
Yep.
they are married.
Yeah.
But Abraham had already sent his
Yep.
servant with this specific instruction:
Yep.
go to my family, go find him a wife from my family, not the other people, right? And then what did that servant have to do? He stayed with them and gave them gifts and votives and things and said, look, okay, do you guys agree with this?
And she got jewelry.
Yeah.
And
So
yeah.
those were
And so
their
it was in a
societal
binding agreement,
customs
right?
and agreements.
There was still
Exactly.
both families, even though separated, still agreed upon this union.
Mm-hmm.
So that was your authority over this marriage. It was accepted. There was witness. Okay.
Well, and arguing that it's just a piece of paper that doesn't really matter is a self-defeating argument.
Yeah.
It's just a piece of paper. It doesn't really matter, so go get one.
Yeah.
If it's just a piece of paper and it doesn't mean anything to you, then
I mean,
just
because
go
we could
get
do that
one.
all. Your taxes
Because
are just a
here's
piece of
what it
paper. Your
really
driver's
is.
license is just a piece of it. Like,
And I'm sorry if you're the one exception to what I'm about to say here, but here's what it really is when you're going, I don't want to get married because I'm already married in my heart and God already acknowledges it. And
I'm against the institution.
or
Whatever.
it's just a piece of paper. What it really is, especially if you're proclaiming Christ, is you don't want to get divorced.
Yeah.
So you don't want to get married because you believe that you're going to get divorced. Then I go, why are you with this person in the first place if you don't think that
Exactly.
you're going to make it work? Because at the end of the day, you don't want to make it official because you want the out clause. You don't believe in divorce, so you're not going to get married because you knew if you get married, you might be stuck with this person that if one day they do something, you want to be able to walk away without the guilt of going through a divorce. That is the whole reason.
You don't want to get right before the Lord.
Well, and-
plain and simple.
And remember, too, that the changes in our culture have come very rapidly.
Yes.
But marriage was held with honor
Yep.
before. I mean, just think 100 years ago, adultery was still punishable, like severely.
Yeah.
Even in this nation. In fact, the military
Yeah, you
held
go
it
to
for the
jail in
longest
the
time.
military still.
Yeah, it was severe, like even in the last decade. But they've had to change because of the culture. And why did the culture change? Because they got away from the Word of God.
Yep.
They stopped trusting in Christ, and we've become a pagan nation.
Well, we talk
unfortunately.
about sexual people immorality. Sorry, I don't know where I lost my word. But we talk about that, and people think like crazy, weird. You know what I mean? All this other stuff. It's like, do we know what fornication is?
Right.
Any clue? Anybody know? Because if a pastor stood up and say, "Hey, all you fornicators stand up," people be like, "Oh, well, that's not me." I mean, maybe you got a couple guys that are having an affair or something like that. But like, you know what I mean? Like most people are like, "I'm not." Is that your husband? Is that your wife? You're a fornicator.
No.
Point taken. Yeah. And that's
And
the point, is that how
if
would you
your
define...
list falls on does not inherit the kingdom of heaven, like that should be huge. This should make you fall on your face and be like, there is nothing, no financial, no social, no whatever thing that's going to stop me from getting right in the eyes of God with this matter. There is literally no excuse.
Right. Lack
'Cause
of fear of God.
That's huge.
There's no fear of God, just like it says in Romans 3. And the fact that they don't honor God, so they're not loving God. Because if that was your focus, all of this would come into play. You would say, what does God's word say about this? How do I honor God in this situation? But that's never the first point, right? It's, let me make excuses. Let me find ways to try and talk this out of it, whatever it takes. But I refuse to basically love God, is what it comes down to.
Yeah. I don't think anybody else has anything. I mean, because that's what
That's
it
a pretty
is.
good ending right
That's
there,
it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this will be one, and the second point that we never
All right.
got to will be our second one.
All right. Well, part 2 or 3 coming soon.
2.
3
Well,
of
tithing.
this series.
Yeah.